blast and 29 others, including 5 civilians, were injured in the Kandahar attack. This is BBC News. Still to come, Canada's Prime Minister gambles on an early election, the country's third in just over 4 years. Now, here in the UK, some of those affected by severe flooding in Morpeth in Northumberland have begun returning to their homes. Torrential rain and flash floods had caused chaos, with more than 62 millimetres. That's a month's worth of rain falling in just 24 hours. 300 people had to be rescued from their flooded homes on Saturday night, and 1,000 spent the night in temporary accommodation. From Morpeth, Chris Buckler reports.
There have been breaks from the rain. However, the floodwater hasn't gone away in parts of Morpeth. Many families here still can't return to their homes, but they're left to deal with all the damage that's been caused.
Oh, it's horrendous. I've never known nothing like this. I'm 62 years old. I've never experienced nothing like this in my life. As I say, you can see, this is my bathroom. Oh, I can't get worse than that. It's impossible.
Today, people here have discovered the true force of the water. Trees and walls were unable to cope with its raw power. Yesterday, Michael Pringle was the father of the bride, but he missed his daughter's wedding reception, trapped at home.
Lost everything. Cars, house, caravan. Couldn't get out to go to the reception. Managed to see my daughter this morning for half an hour when she came.
Help came from the air as the water levels rose in Morpeth. This RAF video shows a member of its rescue team being lowered down to the houses below. It was one of many attempts to get people to safety. On the ground, the emergency services used boats to take people to shelter. The streets impassable otherwise. It's hard to believe, but this bridge disappeared underwater as a result of yesterday's flooding. And although there is now a distinction between the river and the land, people are still concerned about the flood defences. The Environment Agency insists there are plans to improve them, but that's going to take time and money, and with further heavy rain predicted on Tuesday, that's going to be little comfort to the residents here. Families who were given minutes to clear their homes of valuables now find themselves having to clear the same houses of furniture. The recent flooding has caused much concern, and Gordon Brown has now ordered a report. The government's flood recovery minister will visit Morpeth tomorrow to see the sheer scale of damage for himself. Chris Buckler, BBC News, Morpeth.
You're watching BBC News. These are our top stories this hour. In one of the largest financial rescue operations ever, the US government has taken control of the troubled mortgage finance companies Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. As Cuba braces itself for Hurricane Ike, hundreds of thousands of people have been moved from low-lying areas. And police in Israel recommend that the Prime Minister, Ehud Olmert, be indicted on corruption charges. The Canadian Prime Minister, Stephen Harper, has called an early general election in an attempt to strengthen his hold on power. Mr Harper's Conservative Party was elected as a minority government in 2006. He'll seek a majority on October the 14th. From Toronto, Lee Carter reports.
The Canadian Prime Minister, Stephen Harper, arrived at the Governor-General's residence to formally announce the beginning of an early election campaign. He quickly positioned himself as the leader to steer Canadians through a weakening economy.
Between now and October 14th, Canadians will choose a government to look out for their interests at a time of global economic trouble. They will choose between clear direction or uncertainty, between common sense or risky experiments, between steadiness or recklessness.
The leader of the main opposition Liberal Party, Stéphane Dion, is a former environment minister, and he says he has a green plan. But he has been dogged by criticism of his leadership style and his English-speaking communication skills.
Stephen Harper has spent millions of dollars in attack ads, and he will spend millions more to distort reality and attack my character. Well, it's a complete fabrication. That's not me.
The vast Arctic has become a leading issue in recent years. Prime Minister Harper has promised a much more direct approach to protecting Canadian sovereignty against several competing claims from other countries. Mr Harper has made several visits to the area and bolstered Canada's military presence there. The Conservative government also extended the Canadian military mission in Afghanistan to 2011. 2,500 soldiers are stationed in volatile Kandahar, even though Canadian public support has always been jittery. Some analysts believe it could become an election issue, particularly if the number of dead Canadian soldiers reaches 100 during the campaign. For the moment, though, opinion polls over the past few days show the governing Conservatives ahead of other parties, although with no single issue dominating the 38-day campaign, even the Conservatives themselves are downplaying the poll's significance. Lee Carter, BBC News, Toronto.
Some news in brief now, and at least 13 people have been killed in a coach crash in Croatia. The accident happened at dawn local time on the coastal section of a motorway linking the capital Zagreb to the port of Split. Croatian National Radio said the coach was carrying around 50 people and that around 30 injured passengers were taken to hospital in Gospić. The authorities in Egypt say they believe at least 30 people were killed in Saturday's rock slide on the outskirts of the Egyptian capital, Cairo. Heavy lifting equipment has arrived to assist with rescue efforts after massive boulders, some of the size of houses, broke away from a hillside and fell on the shanty town below. And Germany's centre-left Social Democrats have nominated the Foreign Minister, Frank-Walter Steinmeier, as their candidate for Chancellor in next year's federal election. He's expected to face the current Chancellor, Angela Merkel, who leads the right-of-centre Christian Democrats. Scientists who predict that global warming will leave many coastal communities around the world underwater may already have their proof. In one Filipino village, many residents haven't lived on dry land in 4 years because of heavy flooding. Michael Barker reports from Manila.
Like a scene from the movie Waterworld, residents of the Artex compound in Manila must go everywhere on boats.
Mahirap talaga pag pang araw-araw lalo.
You can't go without a boat. If you don't have one, it's like you don't have feet. You're just stuck inside the house, imprisoned.
4 years of chest-high floodwaters have made life miserable. Children have nowhere to play and garbage and human waste goes straight into the water. But amidst the hardship, people have come up with ingenious ways of getting by. Scientists believe low-lying communities are now feeling the effects of global warming, with increasingly heavy rain in short time spans and a rise in sea levels causing ever more serious and prolonged floods. Some, like Artex, are particularly vulnerable, as excessive groundwater extraction has caused parts of the land to sink.
The rates of sea level rise attributed to global warming is in the order of millimeters per year. But nevertheless, you put this on top of a subsiding land, then you amplify the consequences. Okay? You will have more flooding.
Many other communities in Manila are equally at risk from floods, and the government is now working on an ambitious project to save them from the same watery fate as Artex. Michael Barker, BBC News, Manila.
And finally, the woman who must surely be the oldest busker in the world. Hadisono Rukenem is 112 years old and walks around the streets of Bantul in Indonesia playing an ancient Javanese xylophone called the jenda. She plays the instrument in the hope of preserving a fast disappearing tradition. Mauricio Almeida Perez reports.
These feet have walked the earth since the 19th century. Hadisono Rukenem claims she's 112 years old. She's a living and performing legend in these parts, and this is her ancient art. It's a Javanese xylophone called a genda. Hadisono's been playing it longer than most of us have lived.
I learned to play when I was 20 years old, and my mother taught me how to play it because she was a musician too.
No roadies here. Every day Hadisono lugs her instrument around Bantul's dirt streets to busk, but also to keep her dying art alive. Her captivated audience do offer money, but understand her cause.
Actually, she doesn't want to perform in the street. She only cares about preserving the culture. Even her children and grandchildren are on the right track of preserving their traditional culture as they also perform other arts.
I do this to support my daily needs, like eating. I also do it to preserve the culture, but I think I'm getting a bit too old for this.
So retirement may be looming, but no doubt Hadisono's peaceful tones will be sadly missed in the pastoral villages of the Javanese countryside. Mauricio Olmedo Perez, BBC News.
And just time to tell you that Britain's Andy Murray has beaten the world #1 Rafael Nadal for the first time in his career to reach the final of the US Open. Resuming 2 sets to love up, Murray lost the 3rd set as Nadal fought his way back into the match. But Murray kept his nerve in a tight 4th set, coming back from a break of serve down to win it 6-4. Now Roger Federer stands in the way of Murray becoming Britain's first male Grand Slam winner since 1936. And a reminder of our top story. President Bush says his government has taken control of 2 giant mortgage finance companies because doubts about their stability threatened the US economy.
Hello there. After a rather unsettled weekend of weather, we're set to see yet another unsettled week of weather ahead of us. But today denotes some settled weather. Sunshine to be had by many of us and largely dry to start as well. We'll start off on a bit of a chilly note, perhaps first thing across Northern Ireland, but we'll soon see temperatures rising to around about 11 and 11 for Glasgow as well. Sunshine for northern areas of Scotland. In the east, it will still be rather cloudy and murky, with this rain very slow to clear as we head through the afternoon. Sunshine towards the south of Scotland. Now, as we zoom out and head through the day, we're actually going to see very little in the way of change. It remains largely fine, largely dry as well, and with light winds, it should feel lovely and warm as we head through the afternoon. The cloudiest place likely to be towards eastern areas of Scotland, where the overnight rain, as I said, will be very slow to clear. So we'll see temperatures struggling a little as we head through the afternoon. I'm afraid, though, it's not going to stay dry for long. On Tuesday, we see the return of some rainfall with a weather watch out from the Met Office. The rain will arrive in the west first of all. It will steadily march its way across the country as we head through the day, accompanied by some rather strong southwesterly winds with the risk of some gales. The winds, however, will soon blow the front across the country, with sunshine returning on Wednesday. In the sunshine up to 20, but you can see, yes, yet more rain on the way. That rain band really engulfs the majority of the country on Thursday. It becomes very slow moving, heavy and persistent at times, and again accompanied by some rather strong winds, the risk of some gales in the west.
The earthquake was probably the biggest disaster that Pakistan has ever faced. It killed at least 73,000 people, it injured more than 120,000 people, and it left millions homeless. I was in Islamabad when the earthquake happened. I was actually in my house, and I was awakened by the house shaking and rattling and the bed sliding around. So I ran out as quickly as I could to the road, which is where everybody ran to be safe, and stood there waiting for things to calm down. The extent of the damage was something we only really realized after we went to these areas and we saw ourselves how much devastation there had been.
I did some bad things. I deserve to suffer.
A film with Tom Wilkinson and Rhys Ifans, where belonging battles with the science of cloning.
I'm not the real one. You're the only one.
What do you mean, only? There's all the others!
Daddy, hello. It's horrible. I don't feel myself, and there's all the others. I don't want to see them. You are you because that's who you are.
Adapted from Carol Churchill's...
Hello, I'm Deborah Mackenzie with the main BBC News. The United States government has announced it's taking control of 2 troubled home loan giants, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. The 2 companies provide guarantees for about half of all mortgages in the US. President Bush said the takeover was necessary because they posed an unacceptable risk to the economy. Cuba's bracing itself as Hurricane Ike hits its northeastern coast. Wind speeds are expected to reach almost 200 kilometers an hour. Hundreds of thousands of people have been evacuated from low-lying areas. Ike has already caused serious damage in the Turks and Caicos Islands, the Bahamas and Haiti. Police in Israel have recommended that the Prime Minister Ehud Olmert be indicted on corruption charges. Mr. Olmert denies all wrongdoing but has said he will stand down after his Kadima party chooses a new leader this month. Britain's Andy Murray has reached his first Grand Slam final in the US Open. He beat top seed Rafael Nadal in 4 sets in a match that began on Saturday but was interrupted by rain. He'll now meet Roger Federer in the final. A clean-up operation is continuing in many areas of Britain after 2 days of torrential rain caused severe flooding and landslides. Morpeth in Northumberland was one of the areas worst affected. The Environment Agency has 56 flood warnings in place. Forecasters say there could be more bad weather on the way later this week. And now on BBC News, it's time for Dateline.
Hello and welcome to Dateline London. Britain is the only major economy predicted to slip into recession this year. John McCain and his running mate Sarah Palin. Is this the team to lead America? And Muammar Gaddafi gets a visit from Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice. My guests today are Abdul Bari Atwan of Al Quds Al Arabi, Mary Jordan of the Washington Post, Thomas Kielinger of Die Welt, and David Aronovich of the Times. Very good to see you. Well, this was the week that Gordon Brown tried to kickstart the British housing market and not incidentally restart his own political career. Also saw predictions from the OECD which suggest Britain is slipping into recession. Is Gordon Brown serially unlucky? Can he manage to turn things around? It's as if every time he does something, David, there's bad news which overshadows it.
Well, there's a kind of series of central underlying facts about the British economy which are very difficult simply to take a magic wand and wish away. I mean, I think most of us are becoming aware of the combination of inflationary pressures caused by oil prices and food prices and so on, together with, which means that it's very difficult to lower interest rates, together with the credit crunch, which is a completely extraneous and separate factor, which is absolutely killing off our capacity to get credit and run ourselves through a recessionary period. These two things coming together, it's very hard for a government to completely buck this. It can do certain sorts of things to kind of ease the passage.
Mrs. Thatcher was right. You can't buck the market.
It's very, very, yeah. The trouble is the market comes in all kinds of different shapes, and you can say if you want to, credit was too easily available, and maybe we were too extended and
too
so
high.
on. And some people did say that. I wasn't one of them, but some people did say that. Speaking as somebody who would take all the credit that I could possibly get during the period, during that particular period. Yeah. But it's not just a question. It is also a question, in a sense, about whether or not Gordon Brown appears to the British people to be a reassuring presence and saying, yes, it is difficult and I've got the plan to deal with it, or whether he looks like somebody who's being blown hither and thither by the winds of fortune, and that is the impression at the moment.
I was thinking about Ronald Reagan, the difference between that and Ronald Reagan. For all the criticisms made of Reagan, he was a very calm, reassuring figure in the early 80s when the United States went through a very difficult period, or Margaret Thatcher. Huge problems with unemployment and inflation and so on, but she said, I've got a plan. Gordon Brown doesn't have that.
Well, he didn't have Secretary of the Treasury at his time who spells out gloom and doom about the economy, as Alistair Darling did in that famous interview. On top of it, he had the sure touch of being reassuring, as you say, whereas Brown still appears to be the ditherer and allowing certain public debates to float and go on and on and on until he suddenly kills them. For example, the hope that some people had nurtured in their section of economy and of the society of a one-off down payment for energy bills in the winter. That was allowed to run and run, creating great deal of expectations. And then suddenly he comes out calling this short-term measures unhelpful during his appearance in Glasgow the other day. And that is typical Brown. He doesn't know when to start a debate or when to kill it. He doesn't come across as being assured of how to address the situation, as you say, which is bleak and dire, but he adds to it by coming over indecided and undecidedly and making promises that then eventually he can't keep. So that hurts him in addition to the picture of the economy, which is bleak.
Mary, do you think Americans have a sense that they're coming out of the worst now?
I think there's hope about that, but then yesterday when we got this new report that the unemployment now is the worst in 5 years at 6.1% and 80,000 new people lost their job, I think that hit the markets hard and hit people hard. So while people are still betting that maybe it's a good time to buy now in the stock market because it could go up, other people say, I think it's going to be more layoffs. And they're expecting that here too. I think until people start losing their job, it's not awful, but maybe the awful is yet to come.
But also, I mean, Barry, as you know, we haven't even talked about unemployment for years in this country. It's just, you know, it's been a marginal political issue. Nobody really has thought much about it.
This is the problem. You know, definitely it wouldn't be like the 70s where the unemployment was about 3 million and the inflation 25%. But, you know, I believe Britain is edging toward a very difficult time when the governor of the Bank of England saying, you know, it will be a stagnation or flat, the economy will be flat for a year at least, and when actually we can see the inflation is really going up. So I think Gordon Brown facing a huge problem. The difference between Reagan and Brown here, President Reagan and Gordon Brown was the architect of the economy in this country. He did not inherit it, you know. He's supposed to do better and to know better than anybody else. So if there is a problem, I think he is partly responsible for that.
I just want to... Are we much worse off than Germany? I mean, what is the position?
Well, you're much worse off in the sense that too much of your goodness, as it were, and economic performance has gone into the housing market and real estate.
And most Germans
sense,
rent.
Absolutely, they rent. And that sense, the British situation mirrors that in America, which is doubly unfortunate for Brown when he came up with that gimmicky suggestions of going on a holiday for the stamp duty.
Yeah, the tax that's paid when you buy a house for a year at the lower end of the market.
Why come up with a proposal like that when the market is in a downward spiral and you don't want to encourage people to buy and go into the home owning market just when it's on the downside?
Actually we do. I mean, and this is one of these sort of slight paradoxes. It is paradoxical that you can have 10 to 15% house price inflation in a year and regard that as being normal, but a 10% fall in house prices regarded as being cataclysmic and so on. And in a way, it shows a kind of the absurd way.
But you don't want to buy at the time when the downward trend.
No, but you are trying to put a floor under this, and there is something that's slightly unreal about it. And you get it when you're dealing with banks now, which is that they're averse now to almost any kind of risk, whereas before they throw money at almost any kind of risk. And there is a kind of beginning to be kind of departure from reality in the way, because these houses, these houses are worth quite a lot, and there are quite a lot of people who want to move into houses and so on. And I can't help feeling that when the upturn when there is an upturn in about a year's time, it's actually going to be quite a sharp one, quite possibly. It's because there is now a kind of consistent undervaluing of proper assets.
You remind me of my father, who always used to say a bank is somebody who lends you an umbrella and takes it back when it's raining. I mean, that's part of the problem, isn't it?
That I have no greater object in life than to remind you of your father. That's right. I want you to behave better during the course of this discussion.
Moving swiftly on. I mean, in terms of the American housing market, is that perking up? Because I remember you saying a few weeks ago that there were whole streets almost that you could buy for a song now.
Oh, and all kinds of inventions, raffling them off. I'm from Ohio, which was ground zero for this, and it's still really bad. It's still not moving, and I think people are waiting now for the election. And depending on whose camp you're in, they say, oh, if Obama was picked, well, then they'll get confidence back. And then, of course, the McCain people are saying, are you crazy? You're going to have to elect me. So there's kind of a wait and see mood now.
How long do you think Gordon Brown's got? Because I mean, we've heard so many stories about the clock is ticking on him politically. What do you think?
To be honest, when Charles Clark, had a rebellion last week, I thought...
Former Education Secretary.
Home Secretary. I thought, the Labour MP will rally around him and will say to Gordon Brown, look, your days are numbered. But what amazed me, actually, it was a storm in a teacup. Nothing happened. It seems that the Labour Party has no other alternative. It seems they didn't decide. Maybe they are not in their genes to change their leaders. But I believe the man actually is cornered now.
This timing was bad. Clark's intervention was a bad timing. Comes much too early. You need to get the convention convention behind you, you need to see whether Brown has it in him to rally the forces.
But what he's going to say to the convention, what he's going to say to his party conference, you know, he has few weeks left, and he has to deliver something special. I cannot see anything in his sleeves actually to convince Labour Party.
Do you think if Blair walked into that convention, what kind of reaction would he bring?
Well, he's a young man. Maybe he'll come back.
That and other sundry delusions can take us. I mean, Clark said essentially one of two things has to happen. Either Brown has to go, or he has to start making the argument coherently. The problem is that the mechanism for getting rid of a sitting Prime Minister from the Labour Party is incredibly difficult. And essentially, it comes down to this. Brown will only go if he decides that he wants to go. I.e. if enough people say to him, and if it becomes absolutely clear that there's nowhere that he can go, and it's just not.
So it wouldn't be a formal mechanism. It would just be people saying, Gordon, it's not working. For the good of the party, you've got to go.
Absolutely, and he's going to want to see through a little bit more of this cycle to see whether he has a chance of turning things around. So we're at least 6 months
coming round by themselves.
Well, partially, yes, or maybe the agenda will change. You know, maybe David Cameron will be found in bed with 2 young boys or something like this. We think it's extremely unlikely, and so on. But you know, the old events thing. What you can hope for is the kind of attack period on the government. We all get terribly bored with it. We get fed up. We say that's an old story. We've been hearing this for years. But isn't it interesting how Boris Johnson is making a great hash of London or so? Now the trouble is, I think we all can agree that we think that's pretty unlikely to happen.
I think David, you know, when he is 20 points behind, and when the economy is going to be stagnated for a year at least, and when the housing market is collapsing, the sterling losing 15% of its value, how long he can last?
And who wants this job?
Well, actually, we have discussed this before in this program. There are plenty of people who would like their photograph on the wall, their painting on the wall.
They have to call an election anyway before too long.
Yeah, that's true. We do have it. Anyway, moving swiftly on to that great segue here from my father over on the left. Sarah Palin and John McCain have been jumping in the aisles at the Republican convention this week. Now, as the American campaign heads into the most important period of all, do we think McCain and Palin have struck a chord with ordinary Americans, and will they win? They have struck a chord with some Americans.
Absolutely. Have you seen the polls overnight? I mean, the Palin effect is, you know, it's a huge, huge bounce that they got from her. She's front and center. A lot of people are even saying she eclipsed John McCain. You know, she comes out with him, and the crowd goes crazy when they see her, and, you know, it's kind of like this for McCain. So now she's front and center. It'll be interesting to see how engaged she becomes. They've kept her kind of in a bubble, away from reporters, because she's done so well that they feel like she can only, in the weeks to come, kind of falter. So they will actually try to keep her contained. She obviously is a gifted orator. She's a fresh face, and a lot of people like her.
Well, but there are 1 or 2 questions that could be asked of her about policies, for example.
Well, see, they don't want anyone to ask those questions.
Okay, but I mean, an obvious one is you talked very eloquently in your speech about America being self-sufficient for oil and so on, and more drilling in Alaska, whereas John McCain doesn't want extra drilling in certain of the areas of Alaska.
And on several other issues, she's clearly farther to the right and more conservative than he is.
That is such an understatement, isn't it?
I mean, you know, and so I mean, the Democrats keep saying we have to refocus this and find out what she believes. What exactly does she believe when she says that abortion rights are? She's against abortion even in the case of incest, for instance. They want to hear her say that, and she's not so far talking about the details of her plan. Environmentalists are up in arms.
Well, maybe
she wants to drill in some of these refugees in Alaska that people say are precious and shouldn't be touched.
What do you make of her?
Well, I'm surprised. I'm shocked, to be honest. You know, she is extremely inexperienced, and you know, I can imagine her the strongest woman on earth if she becomes a president of the United States. She's supposed to rule the whole world, you know. So somebody like her,
well, even Gaza.
Yes, even Gaza. So Pakistan also. So imagine that somebody who her reputation is moose hunter.
I'd have thought she'd gone down.
You know, imagine to hunt what?
Barry, I'd have thought she'd have gone down really well in Baluchistan. Their lifestyle's pretty similar.
You know, David, what amazed me when I have read that she only got her passport just last summer, and to visit Alaskan troops in Germany and Kuwait.
That was her passport to visit the United States.
Imagine that. She's supposed to handle foreign policies. She's supposed to be influential. So
she's not supposed to handle foreign policy. I mean, it's why the thing is that she is in many ways a kind of demographic calculation by McCain, isn't she? She's young, he's old. She's female, he's male. She comes from a kind of small town atmosphere. He doesn't know how many homes and so on. So, and she's obviously an incredibly good orator. I mean, that's the thing that we learned. You've got Barack Obama, who orates, is an Olympic orator, and so on. And she can deliver a really good speech. She's the one politician who has genuinely made me laugh during a speech in the recent past. The lipstick joke was perfectly delivered. And Danny Finkelstein from our paper wrote, and he's absolutely right. He's written a lot of political speeches, seen a lot of them given. That is hard to do, but so there's been an immensely enjoyable bit about seeing her also using the weight of the liberal media establishment against itself and so on, because
it's a judo move, isn't it?
She did,
and got great applause for it.
Exactly, and she identified precisely its prejudices and its pro-Obama smugnesses, which is absolutely true. But the point is the point that was being, that you were making yourself. When you actually itemise the policies and go down them one at a time, certainly for this kind of average European, and I'm much more pro-American than a lot of Europeans are, I just simply want to go and hide in a hole. I mean, I just wish the moose could be armed so that they could fight back.
Well, maybe they can. Maybe that.
You may have wanted to hide in a hole when Jimmy Carter became president. He was a peanut farmer. That was all there was to him. He was Jimmy Who, and she is Sarah Who. Well, the surprising thing about American political culture is that it doesn't quite so matter at this point in time what she believes in, but the fact that she's a novelty on the stage, that she is indicative of the maverick nature of American politics. To allow someone who was unknown 9 days ago to reach the stars and soar to the top is unique in the democratic world, the world all over. And you in Britain and in Germany, you wouldn't allow such people to come to the centre stage.
We will suffer because of this.
Why suffer?
We will suffer because the Americans are ruling the world. That's the problem. And when you have somebody like that who is inexperienced when it comes to international politics, we need somebody to rectify the American image, to make the world safer, to put an end to these wars.
I'm thinking that Palestinian Sarah Palin might be quite an interesting proposition and liven things up a bit.
Palestinian Sarah Palin. Let me just ask you all a simple question that they ask in American focus groups, though. If you had the choice between Biden, Obama, Palin, and McCain, and you had to have one of them for dinner, who would you choose?
No, just think about, and also just think about the Palin-Biden debates which are to come up. I mean,
well, Biden will have to be very careful.
I really want to be that. I would rather have Sarah Palin to
you would, wouldn't you?
I would. I want to hear about how that bearhead got onto her sofa and whether she ever sits on the teeth.
And she straddled such a wonderful kind of spectrum of topics that we could talk about at that dinner table. Yes. We could talk about Mary Poppins, the hockey mom and stuff like that, and we could talk about the Iron Lady, Margaret Thatcher, because she's really a mixture, someone said, of Mary Poppins and Margaret Thatcher. She comes across this pit bull thing. I don't think she loves pit bulls very much, but that was her way of saying, I'm the Iron Lady of Alaska. And so you could have a wonderful political debate about how to run the world without ruining a
Obviously,
Palestinian.
most people would pick Sarah Palin because she's new, she's fresh, people are interested. They're sick of, they're not sick of McCain's story, but they think he's a hero, but they've been hearing it, not just this year, but McCain's been around a long time. And Obama, there's been a bit of saturation on Obama. Some people think he peaked months ago. She's new, people like new, so they want to have her for dinner. Do they want her for vice president and ultimately maybe president because McCain is old? That's the question that's going to be played out now in a few weeks. And a lot of people say she's likable. And I kind of like the idea that there'd be a baby crawling around the vice president's mansion. Actually, two babies, because her grandson or daughter will be there too. And this whole thing is kind of novel, exciting, new. Again, you want her for dinner. Or they used to say that about George Bush. He's a great guy to have a beer. Now people don't like Bush. So maybe they'll decide that that's not the only criteria about how you pick a president.
Well, I don't know. Maybe it is. Well, I mean, what was it said about Roosevelt about third-rate intellect and a first-class temperament? I mean, temperament is something that people relate to.
Let us wait for the media, when the media start to interview her and to see her reaction.
Whether she's allowed out.
I think
she may not be allowed out to meet the media.
But the media will be very nasty, you know. But, you know, if I have a dinner with her, I wish I can. But anyway, I will ask her. I will ask her very simple questions. Why moose hunting, not salmon fishing, for example?
Oh, I think she probably does salmon fishing as well, does she?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I see. So what's your problem? You like moose and hate salmon?
Yes.
Sorry, David, you were about to say something.
That was what I agree very much with what Thomas said. I mean, I feel, and also, I'm trying to separate my innate snobbery about Sarah Palin, which I think we in the media class have, and she knows about, and she exploits very well, from a genuine dislike of a lot of her political positions on climate change, on abortion, on homosexuality, and so on. It is one thing to have a view about what should happen in your own case of abortion. It's quite another to say that you want other people to have that position enforced upon them. Now, you can argue that with McCain as president, she doesn't get the chance to do that kind of stuff. And what we'll see is,
much opposed to some of these
but what I really don't like, Thomas, is the fact that she supported Buchanan back in the 90s. That to me is a real no-brainer. Buchanan is a bad guy, an anti-Semite and everything. And I really can't understand why. Now, it may be that she was so young, she just didn't know what she was doing. We've all had our youthful indiscretions and so on. But I'd like to hear her say, as Obama had to say with regard to Jeremiah, right, okay, this is an aspect of my past and this is what I'm now doing with it.
It's exactly what I expect her to do, because in order for her to ingratiate herself with the American public, she will have to soothe and water down and temper some of her extreme beliefs. Otherwise, she's not going to make it in that republic of America.
I want to move on, but I would just, it is interesting, isn't it? We've talked entirely about Sarah Palin in this election, so I think that is...
There's never been a vice presidential candidate who's created so much buzz.
You said the thing about earlier about she even eclipsed John McCain, and I thought when I was thinking about it, is that a hard trick? Much as I like it.
I see. Moving on, because there was a time when Muammar Gaddafi was top of the list in Washington's Enemy of the Month Club. Well, this week he celebrated a visit from the US Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice. How significant is this, do you think?
Extremely significant. It is endorsement of reconciliation between the two enemies, United States and Libya. And I believe Colonel Gaddafi is the happiest man on earth because he was waiting for this visit to actually present himself as a repentant character of the Middle East, of Africa. I noticed that he was actually behaving as if he is actually the emperor of the whole world, sitting like that. By the way, he did not shake her hand at all.
Did he? No.
He didn't. You know, when she extended her hand to shake,
remarkable.
you know, he said, just like that.
Well, yeah.
He loves that. I remember when Tony Blair visited him for the first time, actually, he put his shoes in his face. And this is a degrading moves from him. I remember the Daily Mirror contacted me and asked me, is it significant in the Middle East? I said, yes, it is significant. So I believe now Gaddafi actually did his homework very well. He bought his way out of isolation, of actually sanction. Now he is saying to the international community, here I am, I got the foreign minister of the United States here visiting me. I am not the bad boy or the rogue state which you expected me to be. So I think it is he opened a new page in the relation with the West and with the United States in particular. Other point is, he is in love with Condoleezza Rice because she's black. Seriously, you know, he praised her several times, and now he is turning to Africa. And Saif al-Islam al-Gaddafi told me, you know, that his father asked him to marry a black African in order to improve, you know, the generations, the Libyan generations. So he likes black people, and I believe he. You remember King Fahd of Saudi Arabia? He wrote a
you
poem.
come on this program and you learn stuff.
You do learn. You did not know that.
David, I'll tell you something. In the Middle East, chemistry is very important. King Fahd of Saudi Arabia, he was actually, you know, he has a soft spot for Margaret Thatcher, and he wrote a poem about her and praised her beauty. Imagine that. I think he was the only one who praised her.
I think Ronald Reagan did actually as well. But to go back to that.
But wouldn't you love to be at that dinner last night between the two of them? I mean, you have Condi Rice, who's at the waning days of an unpopular administration, saying, see, this means that we don't have permanent enemies. And then you have Gaddafi saying, I love Condi, my darling. We paid a lot of money to watch that.
We would. And also, you think about that dinner, isn't Gaddafi much sharper than Saddam Hussein? I mean, he has played a very difficult hand very well.
Well, and he's also, although he's absolutely in power in his own country, he understands perfectly well that there is something to do about his image in the world and vis-a-vis